Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael DiGiacomo. I'm the U.S. Attorney here in the Western District of New York. And today I'm here to tell you that yesterday, federal charges charging Keith Holmes, 30 years old, of Rochester, New York, was charged here in the Western District of New York with assault on a federal officer. And in doing so, he used a deadly and dangerous weapon in violation of Title 18 United States Code Section 111. That charge carries a maximum sentence of 20 years. In addition, he was also charged with, by way of complaint, that during in relation to a crime of violence, he knowingly used, carry, and discharged a firearm in furtherance of that crime. That charge carries a sentence of 25 years to life. He's also charged with possessing ammunition, having previously been convicted of a felon. As he is a prior felon, he was convicted of possessing ammunition that had traveled in interstate and foreign commerce. And that sentence also carries a maximum sentence of 15 years. Now, we all know that the reason we're here is because events unfolded on Monday, of which at approximately 3:25 in the afternoon, that members from the U.S. Marshals Task Force, it's a task force designed to go out and seek and find those who have arrest warrants, that they conducted a planned operation to go arrest Mr. Holmes. Now, as I mentioned, Mr. Holmes was on federal supervised release based upon his 2020 conviction for possessing fentanyl and possessing a firearm in furtherance of that drug trafficking crime, of which he was sentenced to 96 months in prison. On December 12th, 2024, President Biden granted an executive grant of clemency to Mr. Holmes and others, whereby his sentence of 96 months, of which he was originally sentenced to in the state of Maine, that he was released from prison, but his term of supervised release remained. And as a result of that term of supervised release was the basis of which the United States Marshals Task Force went to go find Mr. Holmes, because he had violated a term and condition of that release. And so there was an arrest warrant that they went to effectuate. And as I noted, they arrived at 861 Glenwood Avenue to obtain the arrest warrant, to execute the arrest warrant, excuse me. They went in, they knocked and announced their presence. And as they approached the bedroom where Mr. Holmes was, Mr. Holmes began discharging a firearm, striking the shield, luckily, that was being held by one of the marshals. And I think if we can put that shield up. Here's a picture of the shield that the deputy marshal was holding, and as you can see, there's bullet marks, at least 2, possibly 3, as Mr. Holmes fired through the door. As a result of that, Mr. Holmes' aggressiveness, obviously shots were returned by the task force officer. Mr. Holmes was struck. He was rendered medical aid immediately once the situation was secure, and then he was taken to a local hospital where he's currently under treatment. These are serious charges because, it's no secret what we have seen over the last several weeks here, especially in Buffalo, is we've seen an uptick in aggression towards law enforcement. And that aggression towards law enforcement was again demonstrated on Monday. And these are, what we fail to sometimes realize is the folks standing next to me and the folks who are out on the street every day enforcing the laws as they exist. It's a dangerous job. I don't think anybody would beg to differ, but the events we've seen over the last several days and the events of Monday would indicate and further bolster that position. Because one of the things that we've all come to realize is more often than not, when gunshots ring out, most people run away. And members from law enforcement, their job is to run to it. And so Monday's event, thank goodness no marshal or deputy marshal was harmed. And part of it is due to the fact that the shield protected that marshal as that marshal was standing outside the door where Mr. Holmes began to fire. So again, I will open it up to, well, first I'll do is I'm going to turn it over to Marshal Salina if he has any comments he wants to make.
Thank you, U.S. Attorney. Good morning, everybody. My name is Charles Salina. I'm the U.S. Marshal for the Western District of New York. Thank you to our United States Attorney and our law enforcement partners from the FBI and ATF for their support in securing this arrest warrant for the violent assault that occurred on our U.S. Marshals Task Force. I also want to recognize the courageous work of every member of our task force. To every Deputy U.S. Marshal, Buffalo Police Officer, Erie County Sheriff's Deputy, Niagara Falls Police Officer, State Trooper, and Department of Correction Officer, thank you. On Monday afternoon, these brave law enforcement officers were on Glenwood Avenue working to protect the city of Buffalo. During this arrest operation, they came under attack and were forced into a gunfight to defend their lives. Thank God for their exceptional training and teamwork, they were able to successfully respond to the threat and return home safely to their families and loved ones. Lastly, I would like to remind everyone that members of our law enforcement go to work each day and night to keep our communities safe, knowing that they face the very real possibility of not returning home to their families. Thank you.
Now I'll turn it over to Special Agent Brendan Dunn.
Thank you, U.S. Marshal, U.S. Attorney's Office, State Police, Sheriffs, ATF for being here with us today. Today's charges reiterate a promise that the FBI makes every day. Violence against law enforcement officers will not be tolerated. FBI Buffalo and our partners will investigate, identify, and hold accountable anyone who threatens those who serve and protect our communities. Members of law enforcement put themselves in harm's way every single day to protect the American people and Western New York community. When a criminal chooses to assault an officer, they put themselves at risk. They endanger the lives of everyone involved. The responding officers, neighbors, family, friends, and possibly even your lives. This is why we do what we do. Above all, the FBI remains committed to protecting lives and pursuing anyone who threatens or harms law enforcement officers. Thank you.
I'll turn it over for any questions that anybody might have.
What term of use did you violate or allegedly violate?
It's alleged that he left the jurisdiction without authority.
That's Rochester or Maine?
No. So what happened was his conviction was in Maine.
Right.
His supervision at some point was transferred from Maine to the Western District of New York in the Rochester office. So it was the terms and conditions were previously imposed, and he was required to follow those terms and conditions. So that's where might be some confusion as to how the convictions in Maine. How does he end up in Rochester? That's how it happened.
He was supposed to be in Rochester.
Yes, he had conditions. One of which was he could not leave the area.
So why was he in Buffalo?
I don't know the answer to that question. Again, I don't know the answer as to what brought him to Buffalo, but that's all I can tell you.
When you say the area, do you mean like the city of Rochester or just the 8th District?
I don't know the specifics of how far he was allowed to leave, but I don't believe it. Normally those conditions, and again, I can't speak for his specifically, normally those conditions are you're not supposed to leave the Western District without prior approval. But again, I cannot confirm the exact nature of his restriction.
What's his condition?
His condition, we understand he's, again, the last we heard, we understand he's in critical condition.
Has he been arraigned then on the charges, or I know it gets complicated in a hospital?
Well, again, he has not been officially arraigned. What they call in a criminal complaint in federal court is he would face an initial appearance. There has to come a point in time when that will happen. This complaint was secured late last evening, and we are still working through the logistics on when that will happen, which would be if he's still hospitalized. Generally, the rule of thumb is a United States magistrate judge will travel to the hospital to conduct it.
Does he have a connection to a homicide case out of Rochester?
I know that's been reported. I can only say that that is out there. That if he has any involvement in that, that would be a question I would direct you to the Rochester Police. My charges with respect to Mr. Holmes relate to the conduct of which he engaged in on Monday against law enforcement.
When was he granted clemency by the Biden administration?
The executive grant of clemency was dated December 12th. If you can give me 1 second, I can confirm that. December 12th of 2024.
And since then, has there been any other issues that he's had violating his supervised release besides this current one?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know exactly how well or he wasn't, following the terms and conditions of his release, but clearly this release resulted in a violation, resulting in a judge issuing an arrest warrant for him.
How many times was he shot and where on his body?
I don't know the answer to that at this juncture, so unfortunately I can't answer that.
Can you talk about what these task forces are made of? It's not just marshals, obviously. There's other agencies and how that works and what was going on that day. You clearly anticipated a potentially violent situation.
Well, again, I'll turn over
Sure.
to the marshal because the task force is his jurisdictional domain.
Sir, as I said, the U.S. Marshals Task Force is multi-agency. It's led by the U.S. Marshals, but we have state, local, and federal participation. So every day, they are out there looking for violent offenders. On arrest warrants, federal arrest warrants, state arrest warrants, anything that's violent gets turned over to the task force. So on that day, we were seeking him on the federal arrest warrant on Glenwood Avenue.
All the agencies that you listed before, or someone listed before, were those all present at this incident, or is it kind of like a...
Again, we can't comment on who was there. It's an ongoing investigation, but it was the U.S. Marshals Task Force that was present on Glenwood Avenue, and it consists of those agencies.
Were there also with
No,
part of the members of the... Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this happened Monday afternoon. I have to ask, why did it take until Wednesday for any information to be released?
Well, first off, when you're dealing with any type of officer-involved shooting or agent-involved shooting, you don't rush to judgment. You take a methodical approach, and if you recall, this all transpired on late Wednesday afternoon. There was legal process that had to be secured, evidence secured. That evidence had to be reviewed, and once the evidence was fully reviewed, the charges were filed.
And can you describe the protocol for the marshals involved in this incident before they on leave?
Yeah, no, I can't comment on to what our protocol is for that.
But the FBI is the lead investigator
That's
for
correct.
the incident, right?
FBI is the lead investigating agency with respect to when there's an officer, or when there's an agent involved incident.
And the charges against Mr. Holmes, they are all related to that one incident in terms of the gun and the ammunition. It's all related to what happened Monday, not
Correct.
anything separate.
Correct.
from that.
That he does still have we'll call it he still has the pending supervised released violation that will have to be addressed at some point. But the charges of which I outlined for you a few minutes ago relate to the conduct that happened Monday afternoon.
He's not on an ankle or anything like that, is he?
I don't know the answer to if he was on a home monitoring situation. I don't know that.
Can you talk about the weapon he used?
Well, the weapon was a ghost gun. So hence the reason he's charged with being a felon in possession of ammunition. Normally, when convicted felons under federal law, if you're a convicted felon, you cannot possess a gun and/or ammunition. To prove that element in the federal system, you have to show that there's an interstate nexus, meaning that generally what you establish is the gun was manufactured outside the state of New York, and obviously if it was used in an event that in New York, that the gun traveled in interstate commerce because it got here somehow. When you have a ghost gun without markings and they're put together by someone, it's difficult to run that trace back. To say that you can't identify a specific manufacturer, to say that gun was manufactured. So because it was a ghost gun that didn't have the ability for law enforcement to establish at this point that some part of it or all of it crossed interstate commerce. The statute does allow us to charge, if you are a felon, you are also prohibited from possessing ammunition. And we established that the ammunition that was recovered from the room and the spent shell casings were not manufactured in the state of New York and hence traveled in interstate commerce.
Can you talk, like a handgun, like a semi?
It was a handgun. Do you want to pull it up? So this is where 18 is generally, I know the picture clarity is not the best, but that's an area, that's the gun that we believed he used. And then these are 19, 20, those are some of the casings that were recovered in the room as well.
Is anybody wearing body cam, or is there any video of the incident?
There is body cam images of the event. So, to answer your question.
Do marshals wear that by rule or generally per protocol?
I mean, there's various protocols. The agencies wear them, have them, and if they're required, then they were on that day.
Will you be releasing any footage?
At some point, there's a protocol of which footage is released and the process of which it's done. That process will be followed.
The charges, do they run concurrently?
The charge that would run concurrently is the 924C charge because that's stacked on top of any underlying offense.
Do you mind clarifying which one that is?
Oh, that's the 924C. I can give you the exact. 924C1. 924C1A, subsection C. Subsection 3, excuse me.
Is anyone else in the house for the session?
Nobody, to my knowledge, nobody else was in the house at the time during the incident.
You were talking about how there's been a number of violent incidents against police and law enforcement. I mean, what do you think needs to be done?
Well, I mean, for me to say that there's one cure-all, I wish I can tell you that I have that. I don't think anybody, even myself or anybody standing next to me, can say that if we do A, B, C, and D, that would stop it. It's just an inherent risk of the job, and I can't say for one reason or the other why someone would engage in such conduct towards someone in law enforcement. So it's a long way of saying I wish I had an answer for you and be able to give you a cure that would fix it, because I think everybody standing with me would buy into that cure, but I don't.
How many officers fired?
Again, that's still part of the investigation that's undergoing.
What are the next steps since he is in critical condition?
Obviously, the next steps would be once we have determined that he's in a position to face an initial appearance, we will then undertake that process. If and when there comes a point in time he's discharged, he will then make a formal appearance in court here in the Western District to face these charges, and eventually at some point the case will most likely be presented to a grand jury.
Would someone be able to just kind of go over the layout of, like, they go in the front door, where he was, what floor the bedroom was on, how far they were away from the door, that kind of thing?
I mean, that's part of the investigation. I mean, they went into the house. All I can tell you is that we believe he was in a back bedroom. It seems to be a bedroom based upon the picture and what we've gathered so far. But the exact layout of the house is still part of our investigation, and I'm not at liberty to discuss
First floor
that.
bedroom, do you know, can you say that?
It was a bedroom. I really don't want to say which floor he was on.
Was that an abandoned house or?
I don't think so.
Was he renting it?
No, it was occupied, obviously, by the suspect, but I don't know the whole logistics of the residence there.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.